So, a very good morning to all of you. Jai Hind and welcome to the Daily Current Affairs and MCQ series. So, because of an unforeseen emergency, I had to send this session as a recorded version. Apologies for that. Let's begin with the first article. That is, Zydus has sought approval from the drug regulators in India for its DNA-based vaccine for COVID. So let's discuss. There are two articles today that talk about this particular ZyCoV-D, that is the name of the vaccine. So ZyCoV-D, that is the DNA vaccine against COVID-19, which is developed by a Gujarat-based company, that is Zydus Cadila. So first good news is that this is a vaccine which is going to be the first DNA-based vaccine in the world if it gets this approval from the drug regulators, right? And coming on top of that is that it has been developed, or it is developed by an Indian company, right? Then it could be on its way to becoming the world's first DNA COVID vaccine after it gets approval. And the ZyCoV-D showed safety and efficacy in a late stage trial. If we are to discuss about the efficacy of the vaccine, then roughly more than 28,000 volunteers across the country, including 1,000 people of the age group of 12 to 18 years, they participated in the late stage trial, right? So that all is going to be evaluated before the DGCI gives it a final approval. Then an approval for Zydus vaccine ZyCoV-D would make it the fifth vaccine. We are already having 4 other vaccines, and if ZyCoV-D is added to that list, it would be the fifth vaccine to be authorized for use against COVID in India, right? Just to quickly give a recap of what are the other vaccines which are deployed currently, that is the Moderna vaccine, the AstraZeneca vaccine, which is being partnered with the Serum Institute of India. Yes, Moderna has which is the Indian company which is the partner of Moderna. Please type it in the comment box. Then you have India's Covishield, that is Bharat Biotech's Covaxin. Then you have, and last, the Russian vaccine, that is Sputnik 5, developed by the Gamaleya Institute of Russia, which were approved, right? But yes, there is one more thing apart from this development, that even if this vaccine from ZyCoV, or the ZyCoV-D as the name of the vaccine is, gets an approval, then also the current manufacturing capabilities of the company are not too significant to add a substantial chunk of the vaccines to the overall, we can say, apparatus, right? But yes, this would be another substantial, we can say, addition with respect to covering the number of people against COVID, right? Chaliye. And apart from that, please note one more thing, that we are again witnessing in some parts of the country and in some parts of the world as well an increasing number of COVID cases once again, right, which started dipping. So it becomes important in the light of that fact as well. Okay, so moving to this question, which of the following statements is or are correct with respect to vaccines to fight COVID-19? A DNA vaccine carries into the body the genetic code for that part of a virus that triggers the immune system of the body. And second, both ZyCoV-D and the vaccines developed by American companies Pfizer and Moderna come under what is known as a nucleic acid vaccines. Yes, please type your answers in the comment box. I'll just take a halt here so as to ensure that we have maximum number of answers. Okay, so discussing the first statement, that is a DNA vaccine, that is precisely the case with ZyCoV-D, the vaccine being developed, or that has been developed by Zydus Cadila. It carries into the body the genetic code for a particular virus which triggers the immune system of the body, right? This is different from a vaccine which is an RNA based vaccine. So first is correct, and second, both ZyCoV-D and the vaccines that have been developed by Pfizer and Moderna, and in partnership with Cipla, the Moderna vaccine is also approved for its deployment in India, right? So they all come under the nucleic acid vaccines category. So second also is correct. Hence your answer for question number 1 will be C, that is both 1 and 2 stand correct, right? चलिए, so please remember this is a different form of vaccine as against the earlier forms of vaccines which were essentially RNA based, right? चलिए, moving forward. So with respect to the SEBCs, that is the Supreme Court earlier also had in its ruling on the 102nd Constitutional Amendment Act and also the identification of the SEBCs that came along when the Supreme Court had struck down the Maratha quota or the Maratha reservation which was given by the Maharashtra government. Now it has refused to entertain a petition from the central government for a review on that order, right? So the Supreme Court has dismissed the central government's plea seeking a review of its 5th May ruling that the power to identify SEBCs lies exclusively with the central government, that is the president, as is also read in the 102nd Constitutional Amendment, right? And not the states. That is, states are not to be included, or the states do not have this power to recognize who and who is not an SEBC or a part of that for granting quota in jobs and education, right? Remember, if we talk about that particular judgment, so a 5-judge constitution bench headed by Justice Ashok Bhushan on May 5th had unanimously set aside the Maharashtra law granting quota to the Maratha community. That was the original case or subject matter on which the court had given this verdict. Also, the court refused to refer the 1992 Mandal verdict, putting a cap of 50% ceiling on the reservation to a larger bench, right? We discussed this as one of the important or one of the significant judgments by the Supreme Court when we talk about the different case laws. That is one such case, that is the Indira Sahni or the Mandal verdict of 1992, right? And now with this review petition or the review plea by the central government in the Supreme Court standing cancelled or being dismissed, the government, that is the central government, has two options. One, it could file a curative petition, which would be the last legal remedy as far as the jurisprudence is concerned in the country. Or if it doesn't want to file a curative petition, or if at all the Supreme Court was to reject that curative petition, then the central government can take the route of the parliament, that is enact a legislation to bypass this particular judgment of the Supreme Court, which says that only the central government, that is the President of India, has this exclusive power of recognizing SEBCs and not the states, right? So that is what the last options are there with the central government. We'll have to wait and watch as to what does it do next. Chaliye, so moving to the question now, which of the following statements is or are correct with respect to the Supreme Court verdict on the matter relating to the identification of SEBCs and the 102nd Amendment Act? First, the Supreme Court bench unanimously ruled that 102nd Constitutional Amendment gives exclusive power to the centre to identify and declare SEBC, as only the President can notify the list. And second, all the 5 judges of the bench held the 102nd Constitutional Amendment as valid and said it did not affect the federal polity or violate the basic structure of the Constitution. Yes, I'll take a halt. Please quickly mark your answers in the comment box. Yes. Okay, so coming to the first statement, let's discuss this question. देखो, जो पहली statement है, that is incorrect because it was not a unanimous decision, or the bench was not having unanimity when it ruled that only the President has the power to notify the list, and hence it becomes a corollary of that the power also lies with exclusively with the central government. The bench was divided and the Supreme Court had given this verdict in the ratio of 3:2. Why am I discussing this? Because it is important for us people to remember that it is, the judiciary certainly, just by having a majority by one person, because at least 2 people were having here opposite opinions to each other. It was just the one person or the one learned judge on that bench, because of whom this entire interpretation of the constitutional amendment was tilted one way. And precisely that is the matter, that because this way the judiciary sometimes interprets the constitution that it tilts one way and the government or the executive is having some other interpretation on that subject, right? So that is the power which the judiciary has at its disposal, and that is why it is important that the judiciary exercises its powers very cautiously and very minutely, remembering that this one stroke of their pen can do wonders to the Indian Constitution's interpretation. Then all the 5 judges held that 102nd Constitutional Amendment Act is valid and it did not disrupt or did not affect the federal polity or the federal structure of the country. Neither did it violate the basic structure of the Constitution. So second statement is correct. Yes, with respect to 102nd Constitutional Amendment Act, its validity and its non-violation or non-transgression of the basic structure of the Constitution, that was a unanimous decision held by the bench of the court. So the answer for question 2 will be B, that is only 2, right? Only second statement is correct. So question 2 answer is B. Chaliye, moving forward. So yes, the bench in its 3-2 majority verdict had given that interpretation which we had just discussed. Okay, so moving to the next article, that is historic heat wave or the historic northwest heat wave may have killed hundreds in US and Canada. So this has been one of the deadly repercussions of the climate change induced by anthropogenic activities, and let's discuss it. So multiple deaths in Canada, Oregon, Washington may have been caused by a historic heat wave that baked the Pacific Northwest and shattered all time temperature records in usually temperate cities. See, if we talk about the temperature that reached in these areas, that was not significant if we were to compare it with the Indian conditions or Indian cities. But remember, we are talking about the areas which are having temperate cities, right? They are not used to such kind of temperatures, and that is why the impact was even more in their case. Then what the meteorologists have described, that the heat wave was caused by a dome of high pressure over the northwest, and it was worsened by human caused climate change, right? Because it was worsened by the human caused climate change, the world leaders can no more state the fact that climate change is not a reality. We cannot bury our heads into the soil or into the ground and say that climate change is just a fancy, it is not a reality at all. This is making such extreme weather events more likely and more intense. Now see, at one hand you are having an increased frequency, matlab ki inki frequency बढ़ जाएगी, इनकी occurrence बढ़ जाएगी, and on the other hand, apart from an increased frequency, you will have more intense, or the intensity also would be increasing for such extreme events, which means that we could have further lives which could be lost, further risks, which enhanced risks rather, an increased amount of risks posed by these things, which humanity must wake up to. Then Seattle, Portland and many other cities broke all-time heat records, with temperatures in some of these places reaching above 115 degrees Fahrenheit or 46 degrees Celsius. Now some of you might be wondering that this is one sort of normal which we are having in our own domestic conditions. But coming back, so the very high temperatures or humidity conditions, they pose an elevated risk of heat stroke or heat exhaustion, right, which has become the cause of these fatalities in these regions, right? Chaliye, so that is with respect to the historic heat wave. Moving to the question now. Hanji, which of the following statements is or are correct? First, without prompt treatment, heat exhaustion can lead to heat stroke, a life-threatening condition. And second, heat exhaustion is one of the 3 heat-related syndromes, with heat cramps being the mildest and heat stroke being the most severe. And last, that is cool, moist skin with goosebumps when in the heat, low blood pressure upon standing are some of the symptoms of heat exhaustion. Hanji, So we just read that heat exhaustion being observed or being felt in those areas in Canada, US. So please answer this question. I'll take a halt here. Yes. Chaliye. So let's discuss the first statement. With respect to heat exhaustion, if the person is given prompt immediate medical aid, right, that is a prompt action is needed with respect to that medical condition, and if at all that is provided to the person, we can ensure that it does not become fatal or it does not end in a fatality. That is, first becomes correct, though it is a life threatening disease, but that does not mean that in every condition of heat stroke you will be losing the life. Then second statement, that is heat exhaustion is one of the 3 heat related syndromes. One is heat cramps, which is the mildest of the conditions, and heat stroke, which is the most severe, right? So second is also correct. And last statement just denotes some of the symptoms with respect to heat exhaustion. So all the 3 statements stand correct here. That is, answer for question number 3 will be D, right? All the statements are correct as a matter of fact, and you may add these to your notes also. Chaliye. So moving to the next article. So in its financial stability report, the Reserve Bank of India, the governor from the Reserve Bank of India has flagged that the bad loans could see an increase, although there is some optimism also. That is, not everything is on the pessimistic note, but yes, let's discuss this. So Reserve Bank of India has cautioned that bad loans of the banking system are expected to hit 11% of the advances under a severe stress scenario, right? So that is what the cautioning or the flagging has been done by the Reserve Bank. The central bank also warned about the incipient signs of stress. What does this incipient signs of stress mean? It means that there is an impending bubble which is going to burst, or you can say there is an impending threat that many companies or many creditors or many people or many firms which have taken these loans, they run the risk of occurring a default, right, or going on a default with respect to the non-payment. So this incipient signs of stress among the medium and small units, which means that not only the big ones are at a risk, but even the small and medium ones, particularly more so because in the wake of COVID and its impact on the overall economy, we have seen that it is the small, or you can say the medium enterprises, the micro enterprises, which have been hit more badly, right? The informal sector always is at the worst receiving end whenever there is a crisis in the economy. Fine. Chaliye. Then the FSRC, or the Financial Stability Report of the Reserve Bank of India, the Financial Stability Report has said that the macro stress tests indicate that the gross non-performing assets ratio, the GNPA ratio of the banks, may increase. That is, the stress tests which the Reserve Bank runs in a simulation model, when they do this, checking of how the economy or how these figures are leading to the statistical analysis, then this is what with respect to the GNPA ratio the report observes. Then if we are to talk into some specifics, that is within the bank groups, public sector banks on the one hand and the private sector banks on the other hand, then we have that NPAs of the public sector banks are expected to rise to 9.54% in March 2021 and edge up to 12.52% by March 2022 under the baseline scenario, meaning that when we will be comparing these two things, that is forming one as a base or a comparing measure, right, that is the standard measure to compare it from the next development, then this is what the banking scenario or the banking sector can have on the NPAs front. However, what is the note of optimism in it is that there is an improvement over earlier expectations, and this is indicative of pandemic proofing by the regulatory support, which means that all the schemes, all the governance or all the policy support that was provided to these sectors, that has somehow or other also given a cushion in the sense I'm trying to convey to you that उस सारे पॉलिसी सपोर्ट की वजह से जो इंसिपिएंट स्ट्रेस है या जो थ्रेट है इस वक्त एनपीएस के बढ़ने का, दैट इज नॉट एज ग्रेट एज इट कुड हैव बीन, राइट? सो दैट इज व्हाट द report says, or report strikes on the optimistic note. Okay, so moving to the question, which of the following statement is or are correct regarding the Financial Stability and Development Council? FSDC only released this report. So the Financial Stability and Development Council was set up by the government as the apex level forum in 2010. And second, the chairman of the council is the governor of the RBI. And third, it includes as members the heads of all financial sector regulators, RBI, SEBI, PFRDA and IRDA. Hanji, so you must be acquainted with these acronyms, I believe so. Please try and answer this question. So basically it is a subcommittee of the Financial Stability and Development Council which releases the Financial Stability Report, right, or which prepares that report. So coming to the first statement, let's discuss it. Certainly the FSDC was set up in 2010 as the apex level forum, and it is chaired by, or the chairman for this is the Union Finance Minister, and it is not the Reserve Bank of India governor, right? So second statement will be incorrect, first will be correct. And the last statement, that FSDC, it includes the heads of RBI, SEBI, PFRDA, IRDA, all these regulators, third is also correct. So the answer will be the correct statement 1 and 3, that is option A, right? 1 and 3 will be the answer because first and third are correct, second is incorrect because it is not the RBI governor but the Union Finance Minister who chairs the FSDC, right? So you have here the chairman of the council is the Finance Minister. Chaliye. So moving to the last question for the day. Yes. Moving to the last question, the mangroves served as a natural barrier to cyclonic winds in Bhitarkanika National Park during the cyclone Yas. The Odisha government has now proposed to raise mangrove and Kauziranas plantation in its coastal belt. Which of the following statements is or are correct with respect to mangroves? Hanji, so please quickly read the statements. That is, mangroves can survive under hostile environments such as high salt and low oxygen conditions. And second, the mangrove root system can absorb oxygen from the atmosphere. And 3, nematophores are the special roots for this purpose which are there in the mangroves. So relating to your environment and ecology module in UPSC syllabus, and certainly an essential component of that module. Okay, so I believe we have some answers in the comment box. Let's discuss with the first statement, that is, देखो जो ये mangroves and the casuarinas, इनकी plantation जो है increase करने के लिए the Odisha government has declared that it is going to do so on its coastal belt, because the mangroves, they have immense value when it comes to being or acting as a natural barrier against these calamities, right? So that is their significance. And the mangroves, they have the speciality that they can survive even if there is high salt and low oxygen conditions. That is, they are having this amount of sustainability in them. Then the mangrove root system can absorb oxygen from the atmosphere. It does not need that. It should be through the water only. So second also is correct. And last, that is, nematophores are the special roots for this particular purpose. Third is also correct. So your answer will be for question 5, option C, right? So ये मैंग्रोव्स वाला टॉपिक जो है अभी, क्योंकि इंडिया ने दोनों कोस्ट्स पे साइक्लोन्स विटनेस किए हैं, वी हैव विटनेस दी साइक्लोन्स रिसेंटली ओनली, एंड on top of that the Odisha government coming across with this particular plan of theirs, it becomes important for you to revise all these things in the environment and ecology module, right? So I'll quickly turn to the coast. So here you can see that this entire coast region, right, which runs on the eastern side of India or the eastern coast, that with respect to that Odisha government has said that they are going to increase the mangroves plantation. So that is all from me for today. It's a wrap. Thank you so much for all your understanding, and this is Piyush signing off. Study well, stay safe, and thank you so much.